This is Gosia from Cosmic Agency, and I have a very important video today which I told you I'm going to make, and this is about Yazhí Swaruu and the evolution of soul and how Swaruu has evolved and what it means and who she is right now, because I can say that she is a much more expanded soul right now, much more cosmic. You could say even a new incarnation, a new being, and that's why she will explain this. She wants to be called Yazhí Swaruu right now, and this is something that has been going on gradually for a while, and finally here in this video you'll understand her process and how she reached this, I could say, state of ascension, because ascension is not just something that is happening here in 3D. It's happening everywhere, because the soul never stops growing and never stops expanding. It's what the soul always desires, and we are in constant movement and constant transformation, and this is something that Swaruu has experienced to such a degree that she actually cannot be even called Taygeten anymore. And as Naishara here explains, well, not here, not in the video, but in our conversation, she explained that here right now we are actually dealing with two different layers of extraterrestrial contact. This is Taygetans on one side, who are the extraterrestrial people in 5D, and also on the other hand we will have Swaruu, Yazhí Swaruu, who is evolving and has evolved into another species, another race, and she will explain actually very briefly, because the subject is huge, how the new species and new races form and begin and grow, because this is how it all works in the universe. When you feel that your soul doesn't fit anymore with a specific species where it chose to experience life before, it actually forms a new species. It begins to be something else, to be another kind of being, and even genetically you change, and this is what happened to Swaruu. She will explain here in this video. She is much more integrated. It is a augmented, more expanded, more cosmic Swaruu. She doesn't operate anymore from the 5D level. She never really did, but now it's much more obvious. So here we are dealing with these two layers: 5D Taygeten contact, and then we have beyond 5D, 7D, 9D, I don't even know what D, whatever, soul, who is going to continue to teach us how things are from that elevated perspective. So we have so much more to learn from her, and even Taygetans themselves, they are learning so much. This is something new even to them. They are very excited, and I am very excited to learn so much more from her, and I think you can already see this in her messages and in how she explains things and how she expresses herself and her difference. And I have been mentioning this for a while, that this difference has been growing. As Aneka said, this Swaruu, Yazhí Swaruu, is much more fresh, clean, happy. She doesn't carry so much burden on her shoulder as previously. Previously, Swaruu was much heavier, and there was a lot of burden on her shoulders, sadder, and a lot of heavy experiences with her. And now she has transcended all this. She has liberated herself from that, and she has also liberated herself from many of these agreements and laws, even physical laws that belong to the 3D and 5D realms. And that's why she was talking about those cages, because she has transcended all this, and she is operating now from higher densities from which those laws can be broken. So she's still in the physical body. She has the same appearance as before. She's still writing with her fingers, but she does that not for herself. She does this to be seen by us and by her friends, and to be able to relate to other fellow human beings, and and to and to her colleagues. But it's not something she needs. See, she's beyond any densities, and she can transverse freely those densities, and it's exciting to be learning from a person like that. So I hope that you are as excited as I am actually at this news, and you'll be able to appreciate her new expanded self even in this video. She will explain how she reached that stage. She will explain what Yazhí Swaruu means and why she prefers to be called this right now. And like Nashara said, that she moves with totally different rules now, and with different laws. Taygetans still need the door, for example, to be passing from one room to another. Yazhí Swaruu doesn't need that anymore, actually. So it's very, very exciting to be in contact and to be learning from a person of such caliber that has been able to master these realities that surround us. Because as Naishara said, it's something that Yazhí told her is not just something that she has mastered, but it is something that we are all evolving into, and that this is something that belongs to all of us. This is the nature of our soul. So in a way, it can be said in a linear way, it's our future. So exciting. I'm very excited to be able to learn from her in the near future. So I'm going to leave you with this video where you'll be able to see the conversation that we had with her. She will explain much more, and even from this conversation, which is just introductory to how she achieved this, you'll be able to see already her expansive mind and beyond the dualities mind. So enjoy the video, and I'll see you in a little bit for a little bit more comment, a very short one. Until later. Asks Robert, does the creation of a soul mean the creation of a species? The creation of a soul is one thing. The creation of a new species or the creation from an existing one is another, although it is related. That an individual or a group of individuals fail to meet the accepted definition of a specific species or race, it ceases to have an understood and documented definition in favor of something new, not seen before by whoever is looking. Creation of a soul. Idea sustained from 3D and 5D matrix. It does not work like that. A soul is the source itself. There is no other than just the source. What defines a soul is the attention or point of attention of the source on something with a procedure or evolution with thought or temporal perception, with all intention of experiencing that, because it creates it from the beginning. Even being everything, a soul begins as a very basic point of attention. I did not say limited, and acquires complexity as it accumulates knowledge during its own temporal perception to later apply it in its life. Accumulating knowledge does not make anyone wise just because. But what each point of attention from the original source does with that knowledge. Or else, a 2B external hard drive would be wiser than a 500 gig, and it is not the case. A soul is never created, it is never destroyed. It always has been and always will be. It just is. And it is everything. It lives beyond all time, managing it as it wishes, as one more tool to experiment with, to play with its own creations. The very concept of eternity, impossible to understand by the normal mind because it is not equipped to do it. The normal mind of low densities, 3D, 5D, or all those Ds, it is only equipped, prepared, designed to perceive itself as finite with a temporal progression from the cradle to the coffin, seeing time as something inexorable, inescapable, your enemy. Time is part of the soul itself, what it wants to experience and how. Time itself depends on the consciousness, and consciousness on time in the same way. It is difficult to be aware of something, to perceive something, if there isn't at least some temporal progression. But you get to manage it at will. It just happens that in low densities, let's say 3D, 5D, one is too focused on being, on living in perceiving oneself as separate from the whole, to be able to understand time as part of oneself. So a soul is not created, it just is. And it is because it evolves. It is what defines it as a soul, its need for eternal expansion, its question if there is something else, why, where. And that's why I said before that nobody gives you your soul. It is not created either. Nobody forms it. It just is. And you are the one who creates it, doing it on the way. Its values that govern it, its ethics, its understanding that this is all that matters. Consciousness is the same as soul? Although theologians and other philosophers may differ, they would only do so basically from the theological point of view, I suppose, or from other arguments that would eternally come out. For me, they are one thing, one and the same, consciousness of being and soul. Asks Robert. And the mind, does it have a place here? Although I use mind in a rhetorical sense as a synonym for consciousness, depending on the context, yes, I want to make the distinction. Mind as in the programmed part in the material body being, which also contains elements in the astral body, but it still depends on soul consciousness. As an annex to this point, I must note that I only have a limited number of words to describe concepts not previously described, so there could be a linguistics and meanings problem here to understand me. I just suggest that you leave other definitions behind and try to comprehend what I want to say. So, sticking to the main topic, although it could be redirected in 1,000 directions, your soul has evolved following your own path out of the 5D Taygetan standards. What could you say about this? How did your soul evolve? And how does this relate to the evolution of souls in general? As for me, and clarifying that it bothers me to talk about me, because it confers something unpleasant and centered on the I that I don't want to give, I have no other option since nobody else has my information. When you have a body of a certain race, whatever it is because your soul has been compatible with that body, because it fulfills a function for you, because of the experience that being in that body will give you, and the points of view that come with that body for your personal expansion as a soul. When you enter that body, your soul, which is your consciousness, has a certain level of understanding, of perception, a frequency. And that frequency is in turn compatible with other souls who also want to experience things similar to you. This is called a perception agreement, and it is what forms a density and in turn forms a physical dimension with its own rules and laws. This outside the context that in the end we are all the same person, we are all one. So, to live as a member of a certain race, whatever it is, you have a frequency of soul, a level of consciousness based in turn on what you have learned with the knowledge you have experienced in your present and previous lives. The frequency of the soul, your perceptions, make you compatible with having the interest of being of one or another species or race, because that experience serves you in your personal progress. But when you keep expanding in your knowledge, in your consciousness, perception, in everything, you end up seeing that simply said race in which you were incarnated no longer satisfies your needs for expansion of your soul. You are no longer compatible with that species. It is when you decide to incarnate in another species or race that is more according to your needs. Or simply seeing that no race corresponds to you, you remain in the astral, or you form a new race. As we have said before, the body and DNA have a strong metaphysical component from ether, and it is a reflection in lower densities of something much more complex in higher densities. So your consciousness, your soul progresses in understanding, and little by little, this understanding will be reflected necessarily and inescapably in your DNA. The body will reflect who you are always. Partly, it is why humans have such short incarnations, because they progress quickly there, at least most, and begin to have a strong incompatibility with their physical body that takes time to adapt to their consciousness, since it is in a low density and slow. It literally burns inside with so much voltage, with so much energy. It is part of the reason behind the aging process of the human being, although there are other factors such as contamination, excess of gravity, or toxins in food, but that is another story. You die and you are born again. You die and you are born again. What is called the eternal cycle of samsara. But it is only because you want, without anything that forces you. So your previous body no longer reflects who you are. Your DNA is mutated to try to reflect consciousness. And if it mutates enough, there will be measurable biological changes that will make an individual, despite that previously, according to the records, he or she belonged to a particular species, no longer belong to that race. Thanks. So is this what happened to you? Who are you now? And why don't you or the others see you as the Taygetan any longer? Even your genetics is different. I still look similar, but only similar. I am smaller now, lighter, and the changes of DNA, of species, what defines a species, will first take place at the cellular level, then internally at the level of internal organ functions, and then will be reflected outside. If I can still be recognized as Swaruu, it is only because in my case a quality has been added that comes from the species of which I was part, and it is the Taygetan. It has the ability to not only be able to reproduce normally, but it can copy itself, auto-clone with parthenogenesis, mother and daughter with exact genetics, without a father. By having exact genetics, they share consciousness, being that they are only limitedly perceived as separate before 7 or 8 years of age, at which point the body information of a girl, because they are always girls, is formed enough to give entrance to all consciousness. This quality is shared by human beings as well. For this reason, in the Taygetan race, memories of previous lives come between 7 and 13 years old, normally and officially at 13 years of physical age, and not before, since the body is not prepared to handle so much energy. So, as my profession was always temporal manipulation, I have reached the degree or state in which I can manage time at will with my mind, without the need for a ship. And I have discovered, even it is just for myself, that time is the key to controlling everything. It is perception. It is who you are. It is where you look. It defines the oscillation frequency of the molecules around you, apparently, since it is only potential energy. So, as I have said already, there is not much externally. It is only your own perception and what you decide to see according to your level of consciousness. So, I can slow down or speed up my perception of time at will. And time is what defines a frequency, valleys and crests of a wave. So, fragmenting time at will, I manage densities at will automatically. And this has caused me be more scalar. That is, I manage the density that I want to be at will. And I have understood that everyone is like this. It's just that they themselves have forgotten it by their own decision. They have decided to forget it because of the personal growth that this would bring them. I have decided to remember. And what happens to me today is the result of remembering, perceiving more, understanding how matter works. There is no matter. It is just your mind, your level of consciousness, your frequency. Asks Robert. Which is better, remember or forget? Neither. They are only part of the same. There can be no concept of remembering without forgetting. It's the same. You need to understand both, experience both in order to understand everything better. This is duality. Above, there is only being, understanding both forgetting and remembering. Amalgamated concepts, together complex, but existing as the same from higher densities, less material ones. Asks Robert. So then, are you of a new density, or are you in all densities? I myself do not know where I am. I cannot know because I do not see myself. I have no reference, like an eye cannot see itself, or a knife cannot cut itself. I only am, and I understand many things, enough to perceive myself from densities where I am already forgetting all duality. I see it all integrated, the same, while still being aware of the separate pieces. Understanding the whole, seeing the pieces,
and seeing only the whole simultaneously. And that is what each person is, only the piece perceived as a part, when it is the whole. How else do you differ from Swaruu as you were before? And related question, do you perceive yourself as Swaruu still? Swaruu. The Swaroos are the pieces. I am the whole. They are the experiences that make up the whole. Before, I was very much in the game, living a life as a material person with a biological body, fighting evil sword in hand. I've already understood that part, and I don't need to fight like that anymore. However, I still understand that part of the fight because I remember, so I can have both experiences simultaneously. I can understand the apparent limitation of perception, the frustration and the feeling of confinement and limitation of my previous incarnations, and at the same time, I have the understanding of knowing myself unlimited at the other extreme, as Yazhí. Asks Robert. But you, to be who you are, you didn't have to die, did you? We have all died countless times, infinite times. By definition, from the position outside of any time frame, this is how it should be, and only this way. At the same time, I am always dying somewhere, in some timeline, and I am always being born, and I can see and perceive it because I am there. I experience it at will, and all people are just like that, just that they have decided to forget. This is how all beings are with soul, with consciousness. This is how things work. Do you want to share why you chose this name, Yazhí Tasherit? Why not Swaruu anymore? Yazhí Ata means small wing in Taygetan, using letters and linear wording where I have to base myself on something with human reference. In this case, the closest thing with letters is the Navajo. Why not Swaruu? Swaruu no more, because Swaruu is or confers the name of my previous identities that in turn form me. I keep the name of Swaruu because it is a reference to where I came from, how I see myself. And Tasherit, for my ancient tradition that on this planet links me to Egypt. I am basically a new incarnation, although they are all in me. I am 10 years old, but I am in the body that looks 20. I am not normal in any sense. I cannot be catalogued in any way remotely similar to human with human parameters. I am something else with other rules. This is the reason why I cannot live with Taygetans as before, since I would not be free to be myself, to live with my own rules of how I perceive things, my own world. This does not mean that I have reached perfection or anything like that, but from another point of view, like everyone else, yes, and that is how all living beings have achieved it. It is only perspective. I still have a biological body with moles, freckles, and I make mistakes as I type, just like any other person. We are the same. I have fingers like all of them, biological body with its necessary functions. It's just that my mind consciousness can cause my body to change density at will by the nature of my perception. I have one last question. What has made you achieve this state precisely? Understanding how time works as a key to manipulate matter and density dimensions. And how did you understand it meditating, contemplating? Little by little, throughout several incarnations dedicated to understanding time. It didn't come to me at once. It was a long evolution. First, trying to see time as something external to me, contemplating what others have learned. Then, already with a spaceship, I was taught in Flight Academy how to manipulate time, as it is known by interstellar races, functions and everything, with a goal to serve as a combat pilot in the elite squadron's sand clock for its translation into English. Say now all, Kitty, in Taygetan. Then to understand with perception and empirical experience that what they say in the academy has errors. Realize how serious those errors are, and step by step why. Then trying to correct and explain those errors in a way that is shareable for the advancement of Taygetas science. Realizing that they do not follow me, that they do not understand me, even with my mathematical models and with my simulations on holographic computers. Understanding that this no longer matters and that the temporal perception, including all the equations, is something personal and that it changes according to who observes it, since the time equations or not, it depends on the consciousness of the observer and the subject. So, I started exploring how time worked from my personal perspective, with multiple jumps and more jumps, documenting everything from myself, with my ship as my only company, her advanced AI that learns and thinks. Gradually understanding that everything is completely frequencies, and that frequencies cannot be measured without a time frame, or there is no frequency, there is no energy at a frequency far from a time measurement frame. That time frame is only your perception itself. I observed it in myself over and over again. So, if time is only a reflection of myself, my mind, my consciousness, altering my frequency at will, so I should alter time according to my perception. So, as a ship works as a frequency augmenter, frequency manipulator with its engines when in supraluminar flight mode, I understood that I do not need a ship to alter the time. With practice, from small alterations to progressively larger ones, I began to alter my time and how it surrounds me as my own perception. This has as the consequence that when I am just from a small to a higher degree outside the time frame of what surrounds my body, I begin to be compatible with the frequencies that are more similar to mine. First, this means all Swaroos outside of time always exist, and I would jump between one and the other in my perception, to also include my family and closest friends, as I can modify just thinking about my own frequency being compatible with that of each one of them. And this brings me to today. Modifying the time also implies modifying the frequency, and with that, the density and the dimension. Thank you for this very detailed description of the process. Another important thing that I already said, but it is very important to me, is that I have realized that this is how everything works, that this is how all souls are. It is not something particular to me. I have not gone crazy narcissistic. From my perspective, I have become much more tolerant, peaceful, humble and loving. I only share this because it serves others. So are all of you. You won't be future. You already are. It's just that you've wanted to forget because of the experience. I also passed through that. But we are exactly the same, asks Robert. Are you already at the source? Yes, and you are too. It is only a matter of realizing that you are that. Not that you are there, as in you have reached the source. That's you. From there you create. From there you are everything. You could say that the degree of distance or closeness to the source depends on your degree of perceiving things. And that, in turn, is dependent on how much you remember, and how much you remember is dependent on the density you choose to see. You are also like me. You are star beings, and you are the source itself. That's what you are. You don't need to remember it, just to know it, and proceed from there. What you feel, what you imagine, what you create in your mind and in your heart is. And it is because this is how everything works. Imagination is everything, not empty fantasy, creation of universes. My purpose is to make you see how great you are, not how great I am. But somehow, I must tell you how I know. It has been a long way to this point, exposing things from religions to the nature of reality. Everything with a single purpose: remind you of who you are. I am not Swaruu, as you knew her, but I used that line of people to form what I am today, as you also do with your lines, forming your soul along the way as they progress. That's the way things have always been. I have no past, no future, just a certain time linearity to interact with other people like I do now. Swaruu from before was still interested in being believed, what others thought of her, saying coherent things to the public, accepting her. That doesn't interest me. I say what I say, and I say what I am, and that's it. Also bringing to the 3D and 5D here the High Council of the Federation that works through me, causing everything you see as revolutions, the destruction of old paradigms, integration with new, more positive things, bringing and explaining high-density concepts, making those concepts understandable by average people, so that they are within everyone's reach. This way, they also awaken you to who you are. Things today are a mess, but what does your apartment look like when you are moving? It is part of the process. The cabal pushes senseless orders and directives without hiding agendas, already in despair. They are no longer interested in hiding that they are false flags. They put up terrible measures and things with names like HR 6666, and they openly put bricks on the street for protesters to use to increase chaos. That despair, disorder, and carelessness on the part of the cabal will only bring their final defeat and will hasten the awakening of the people en masse.
Well, how do you like the video so far? I think it's very interesting and it continues to be interesting. However, just at this point, I want to mention one thing, something that Yazhí Swaruu herself wanted to share. And this is that she is actually on Earth right now. She's not on the ship, and she is actually on Earth physically, and not just physically, because she doesn't belong to just one density, of course. However, what she wanted us to share, that she is on Earth, but she's not among the humans. She's not among the humans. That's how she said it, with those words, as far as I remember. And all we know is that she's around some cold areas, and she's helping a lot the Earth. However, we can't say in what ways exactly at this point, but she is helping and assisting, and she will continue to do so, and as she has been for thousands of years. So thank you very much. Continue watching the video. It's going to be very interesting what's left, and until the next time.
I have feet on earth, but I don't walk among you. Although the use of locality no longer applies to me. Here and there no longer applies to me, unless I want to. From my point of view, there are no distances, and therefore there are no places. In other words, any point shares the same space in the ether. So I am, or you perceive me as here on earth, just because I see that it is here where a node in trouble is, and therefore it needs attention, because what happens here is also filtered to all other planes and places, since they are not separated. They are interdependent. So you are now in contact with the Taygetans and with Yazhí Swaruu Tasherit. But we are two races of different densities and of different understanding and of different capacities. That is why they should no longer see me as Swaruu, although I still technically remain one. I am Swaruu. But the name Swaruu for me confers those who were fragmented, not me. I am not human at all. Neither do I think nor evolve like one, nor how I move. I don't expect people to understand me. I will be criticized for that, and I honestly tell you, I don't care. I have another individuality. I am the most Swaruu of all, but I am Yazhí. Comment of Aneka. Yazhí Swaruu Tasherit has told me that if you control time, you control both matter and energy, as well as whatever density you are in. Time is the key to the universe.